Hello, this is Michael from Makers WordPress, and today we're looking into how you can speed up a slow WordPress website. So here I have uploaded theme with WooCommerce and a lot of images and a lot of posts, which is the basis for a quite heavy website. We will be using this website for improving the speed of our website. So first, to start and to summarize, what are the steps you need to take to make your WordPress website really fast? Well, the most important thing is choose a good WordPress hosting company. Then you will want to have optimized images. You will have to optimize your scripts and styles. You will want to have some level of caching. And the last, you want to optimize your code. So let's delve further into these separate issues. But before we go into these separate issues, we have to do some analysis to see where the speed or where the slowness of our WordPress website comes from. So actually there are several tools to test the speed of your website. And the first one is right into your browser. In this case, I'm using Firefox, but other browsers have similar capabilities as well. If you go to your Firefox browser and go right-click, inspect element, you can also use that F12 button. The developers tools will open. These are tools that are used by developers to create and improve a website. In Firefox, you will see several tabs, and there's also another tab called Network. Click on this tab and you will see the several resources that are loaded on your website. What you want to do now is a reload, and you will get a loading graph of your website. Actually, here we see all the different files that are loaded for your website. First, we see the actual document, which already takes almost a second to load. Then we have a lot of small files. These files are CSS files. These files are needed to give your website a layout and a color, the so-called style sheets. Then we have a lot of JavaScript files. These are needed for functionalities, active functionalities on your website, such as a search form that pops up, live search functionality, and so forth. All these things are powered by JavaScript. And we also see a lot of images in our overview. Now, this is the most easy way to do an analysis, but there are also external tools. One which is pretty much known is Pingdom tools. You can enter your URL and enter a location or write a test form. So, for example, you can choose Frankfurt and start a test. Then the test will be running. We have to wait for a couple of seconds. Hang on. And there we are. We have our results. So the good thing is that Pingdom automatically gives it a performance grade. You can see the page size, which is very big. This way, the load time and the number of requests. And what you actually want to do is decrease our page size, decrease our number of requests, which will also improve our performance grade and load time. So page size is often determined by the use of images on your website. Often you have images which are not optimized, which are quite big, and which put a hefty price tag on your page size. And the bigger the page, usually slower the website loads. Also, the number of requests. Usually the bigger the number of requests, the slower your website loads. So we have a few suggestions here to improve our page performance, and one of them is obviously make fewer HTTP requests, which are the 64 requests mentioned here. We can also see that a lot of the content on this website are images, almost 80%. So it will really help to scale down and optimize our images. There are also a lot of scripts which are loaded, a lot of CSS that is loaded. CSS is needed for the styling of your website, and there is also actually the HTML, the structure of your page. Some fonts are loaded, and some video. So if we scroll down, we see a so-called waterfall graph of your website, and this is basically how your website has been loaded. So first we see the retrieval of the page. It takes almost more than 700 milliseconds, which is quite close to a second. You see all the different scripts and style sheets and also images needs to be loaded, and as you can see, these are quite some scripts and images. And this overview is particularly useful to see where the website has to take a lot of loading time. Well, we see that at the beginning, there's a lot of loading time. The images and scripts are loaded actually quite fast, but still there are quite many. You see that here that also the images add quite some loading time in here. So we will look in a moment how we can solve these problems. Another tool is a tool by Google, which is called Pagespeed Insights. You can go to developers.google.com/page/pagespeed/insights, and there you can enter the URL of your website and hit analyze. And now we're analyzing. It takes a couple of seconds to just analyze. Just a small break. Beg your pardon. So here we see the score from Pagespeed Insight, which is quite bad. You actually want it up to the 90s, and 100 is perfect. It's quite good to get at, but let's see what Pagespeed Insights tells us. Well, there are several improvements that are suggested by Pagespeed, which are the most important thing is that images should be served in next-gen formats, which actually means is that images should be compressed, meaning the file size should be bigger. It's not about how big an image is in pixels, but how much kilobytes an image is. There are also a lot of resources which block the rendering of the browser. So if your browser has to load a style sheet, which is responsible for displaying colors, the right typography and the layout, and also a script, it has to wait before it is loaded, and then it can continue rendering the rest of the page, and it can also take a lot of time. And there are some other points here as well. One important thing to mention is the time to first byte. So it's the response time of the server, the time the first byte of your page is loaded. It's also quite high. We also see that there are a lot of assets, 65 assets. These are your style sheets, scripts, images, and this is quite a large number. We won't go further in some of these details. We also have, for example, avoiding excessive DOM size, which is about the structure of your web page. These are more technical details for this article and video. I won't go into it, but if you're a developer, these are quite interesting metrics. You can optimize, even over-optimize a website and spend weeks on optimizing one website with these parameters. So this is a short introduction about the analysis. So what we have learned in analysis is that our page is quite big, possibly due to images, as we also can see here, and we also have a large number of requests. It's quite high, and if you scroll down, we have to wait quite some time before our first page is actually loaded. It takes more than 700 milliseconds. So luckily we can solve these problems with plugins and proper hosting for WordPress. So let's continue and talk about the first topic. One of the most important things you can do for your website speed is choosing proper hosting. The server you use, type of hosting, has a lot of influence on how fast your website is, and we did quite some testing with different hosting parties, and we're quite happy with Cloudways. If you can afford to spend $10 or more a month, Cloudways is one very great performing hosting platform for WordPress. There's a link to them in the description. If you want to spend less, we would recommend Siteground. It's not as performant as Cloudways, but their support is great. The performance is still good. You can also find a link in the description or in the attached article. So one way to check if you have a good host is using the WP Hosting Performance Check. And this is a plugin which you can install on your WordPress website to check how fast your host is. And they will load to your website and also have statistics for the past 7 days and past 30 days. And what you will want to have is actually to have all results in the green. So here they have the web browser load speed on average, and also the hosting PHP server response speed on average. You will want that to have them in the green things. You can see response speed per hour, and also the URLs, which are quite slow to load. There's also another setting in here which is called the system info, which gives more technical information about your system, and 2 scores, and you will both want to have them as low as possible, and as you can see, it's quite good already at Cloudways. But first we go to the first step, and that is improving the size of our images. So let's go to our WordPress installation. Here, this is our WordPress webpage. We will just go to the backend of this, the WP admin, and there we have plugins. We go to plugins, and what I did is install a couple of plugins. I will go through them. These all will do several things for the speed optimization of your WordPress website, but I installed, for example, the Short Pixel Image Optimizer. In our opinion, this is one of the best image optimization plugins for WordPress. And what it does, it compresses your images. So, for example, you have images which is 1 MB in file size, and Short Pixel can compress it even up to 90%. So that would result in only 100 kilobytes of page size. So we'll activate this plugin. What you will see there is that then there will be an extra menu under settings in the Short Pixel. And you have to get an API key from them. You can get a free API key, and you will have 100 image optimizations per month. We have a paid API key, and this allows to compress images. The good thing is that you can also resize large images on your website. So this will save up space for your web hosting. This is quite useful. So now that we have installed Short Pixel, we will go to our media. There we will see all images. Make sure that you're in list view by clicking this blue icon here. And here you can see the several images that are used by our website. So what you can do now is select all, optimize with short pixel, and click apply. What you will now see is that all these images will be processed. The first one is already processed, and the file size is reduced by 64%. That's quite a large number. So now we have to wait a couple of moments for all these images to be processed. It can, especially if you have many images, it can take actually quite some time before all of the images are processed. So in the meantime, you can obviously do other things. You don't have to wait and stare at the screen, obviously. So now all our images are optimized, and if we scroll through this list, we can roughly see that most images are more than 60% optimized. So let's see what the result is in Pingdom. Pingdom was the website speed test tool. So let's test this again. We have a queue. And there we are. So if you look to the page size now, the number is much better. We shaved almost 1 MB from our page size. So another part of image optimization is loading images on a later moment than on the first page load. So imagine if you're loading a website, all the images on it will also load the moment you load the website. But if you use lazy loading, these images will only load if you scroll to them. So if you have written a blog article, for example, with a lot of images, these images will only load at the when you're reading this page and you are at the position of these images with your browser. So there are a couple of plugins for lazy loading. The one I like to use is A3 Lazy Load. You can just add a new plugin and type lazy load for search, and this plugin will show up. As you can see, I already added it here. A3 lazy load. You have several settings here which you can show, but by default, if you install a plugin, the best settings are there, and lazy load is enabled. So if you go to the front of the website, you will see that these images are loaded later on. Let's do this again to make it clear. You'll just scroll really fast. Now you'll see, bloop, there the images go, and bloop, there the images go. So it is only loaded when I scroll to it. And if you go to our Pingdom tools now and do a test, let's hang on. We'll see that the page size is a lot smaller, but also the number of requests is smaller because these images, which are below the viewport, are loaded later. So now we will delve into minification and in caching. So let's go back to plugins. For the speed optimization, I will use a very well-known speed optimization plugin, which is called W3 Total Cache. On Cloudways, it works perfect. It doesn't work perfect on all kinds of hosts and all kinds of WordPress themes, but in most occasions, this is a very good caching plugin with many options, and it's quite elaborate. So I will show you the most important things in setting up your website for speed with W3 Total Cache. So let's activate this plugin. Then there will be a new menu item called Performance. But there is some stuff still there. Let's hide it and go to Performance. And there we are. We go to the General Settings tab. And in here we have the most basic settings. What we want to enable is page cache. What it does, actually, each time a visitor visits your website, a page is generated dynamically. That's the way how WordPress is written. It's written in PHP. So page is dynamically generated by a server each time a visitor visits this website. And this takes some resource of your server. And what page caching does, that it generates a copy from this generated page and serves it to the visitor. So it does not be how you say that. You don't have to regenerate it each time a visitor visits your website. So it's only generated one time, then this copy is stored in the cache, and this cache is served to the visitor, which greatly speeds up the loading time of a page. Let's enable this, and we tested this, and based on your hosting party you will have several options here: disk based or disk enhance. And because we're using Cloudways, you will also can store our pages in our memory or in a Redis cache, which is a technology for caching. We will be using Memcache because we have been testing a lot of websites, and this is the most performant option. Then we have the Minify section. What this Minification actually is that, remember that we talked about JavaScripts and style sheets before. And while in these scripts often there's a lot of white space, a lot of room. And what Minification does, it strips all this white space away. And it also puts these styles and scripts together in less files. So we'll have a smaller number of requests and smaller file size for scripts and styles, which in turn improves the loading speed of our website. So let's enable this. You will get a warning. Well, a lot of times Minification can break the layout or the functionalities of a website because scripts and styles are merged together, and this gives somehow some problems. A lot of times it also works quite well. So we will just go down to the object caching. And what object caching is that it saves the so-called queries in a cache. For example, if you have a homepage with 5 blog posts, these blog posts are queried from the database because the actual information, the text and the titles of your blog posts are stored in a database. So this is a query which is quite common, but each time a visitor visits the website, this query needs to be done. What object caching does is that this query is cached, so it only needs to be queried one time, and afterwards the results of this query are retrieved from the cache, which is a lot faster. This is very basic, a basic explanation. Of course, there is a lot more that entails caching, but basically that's what object caching does. And we will want to enable this, and luckily because we're using Cloudways, we have also Memcache and Redis object caching, and in our testing we found out that Redis object caching is very performant and gives the best results. So there's also the browser cache, which is actually cached from a browser side. So your browser also saves images, scripts and styles and a web page on a local level, so a website will load faster, and a website can give an indication to your browser that they need to do it. So, but it's enabled by default, and it's a good practice. Unless you also have the options for a CDN. A CDN is a content delivery network. And what it does is that it serves the content of your website, which are the so-called scripts and style sheets we talked about, but also your images and your static pages to the closest server from your visitor. So for example, if I'm in Australia and I will visit this website without a CDN, all the content will load from Amsterdam because the server is placed in Amsterdam. However, if I will use a CDN, a large part of the website will be loaded from a server as close as possible to Australia. I won't go further into detail for this video, but if you have visitors from multiple countries or worldwide visitors, a CDN is really a good thing to do. At last, because we're using Cloudways, we're using Varnish, and Varnish is actually a mechanism for page caching. I won't go into detail with that, but if you use it, you have to put in this IP, which is the address for the local server, and it's hit Save Settings. So we will also look into our Minify tab for a moment. And we want also to enable to minify HTML. HTML is the actual structure of a website. And we can also strip all white space from it and make the page even smaller. And furthermore, we want to enable HTTP2 hash for JavaScript and CSS. If you are using an SSL, so you have a green lock, HTTPS in your website, you can enable HTTP2. And what it does is that it already pushes some of the style sheets and scripts from the server, which also improves your loading speed. So let's hit Save Settings and Purge Cachings. And actually, these are basically the things you have to do from the perspective of caching and minification to improve the speed of your website. So it's not that difficult, but you need to know what to set up. So here we are with the speed test, and what you can see is that we have a drastic load time perform improvement. Our page size is also smaller. We have less requests. Our performance grade has been improved. There are still small improvements to make, but what you also can see is that our scripts and our images are much smaller in file size. Remember that our initial page size was 1.8 MB, and now it's only 650 kilobytes. And our page also loads almost 3 times as fast. So this is the result what you can have by optimizing images, using lazy load, and also enabling minification of your styles and scripts and caching for your WordPress website. So if you go to page speed, we also see that our score has been improved. It could be better. Also, that has to do because of how the theme is built up. But it is a drastic improvement from what we had first. So let's go back to our website. And there's one thing which is also important for optimization, and this is the optimization of your database. WordPress uses the database a lot, obviously, and the database can get bloated with a lot of actual data which you are not using. So let's activate WP Optimize, which is a plugin to optimize your WordPress website and especially your database. So let's go to, if you activate and add this plugin, you will have a new menu item called WP Optimize. In here you have several settings to have a scheduled clean up. So what you can do is a scheduled cleanup for weekly. We can optimize tables, remove auto revision. What WordPress does is it saves other copies of a post, and by default this is not limited. So WordPress will make a lot of copies of a post or a page, and if you have write a lot of posts and pages, this will grow your database significantly. Also, WordPress uses transients in the database to store temporary data, and some themes and plugins use it a lot, and your database might also grow really big if you don't remove expired transients. So let's save settings, and actually you're done now. So it's not that difficult. There's also a tab for instant optimization. So for example, we can remove the expired transition options at a moment. And we can also look in the tables of our database. At last, there's also an option to compress images. Actually, this is not, it does work, but the level of compression is much better with the short pixel images we showed before. So there's one last thing which has a real effect on the performance of your WordPress website, and that is the theme and the number of plugins you are using. What is advised is to use as less plugins as possible. So only use plugins that are really needed for your website, and deactivate plugins that you don't use, and even remove them if you don't use them. And also there are quite some WordPress themes which are pretty bloated and quite heavy, and these will result in a slower website, obviously. So be sure to check when you buy or get a new theme to check out the reviews, check out the experiences of people, check out the track record of the theme writer. If he's known for writing performant themes. And this is also if you have a theme and a whole website using bloated or plugins that are not written well, it's quite, you are really dependent on them, it's quite hard to resolve. You need a professional developer for that actually. But what you can do, there is a plugin called Query Monitor, and what it does is that it monitors all the queries and the amount of memory that's used at each page. So I went to plugins and activated this plugin. And what you can see here on the top is that it gives a summary of the loading time of this page, the memory used, and also seconds used for the queries. And as you can see here, that's quite a small number of queries used. So if we reload our home page now, we can also see the results from Query Monitor, and we see actually quite a large number of queries. And developers can use this information to improve their templates. And what you can do if you're not a developer, but if you have a website with a lot of themes and plugins, is deactivate plugins that you're not using, or switch to a different theme, and see what the influence is on this number by Query Monitor, and also the loading time, the memory used, the query time, and also the number of queries you want to have this as low as possible. So this is already a more advanced way of optimizing your website. You really need to want to do this. You can do it in this way, but this way of optimizing takes a lot of time, much more than setting up caching and optimizing images. So it's really for the big websites which really need a performant team, which really need performant teams and plugins. So actually, if you go back to the Pingdom tools, we can do a test again to see to what we arrived. Let's analyze this again. So we went from a web page which loaded in 1.5 seconds to a web page which loads under 600 milliseconds. And we went from a page size of 1.8 MB to a page size of 650.3 kilobytes by these performance improvements. So as you can see, it's not that hard to improve the speed of your WordPress website, and it's really beneficial because also Google will rank websites with a better speeds higher. Of course, taking into account that your website also has good content and other factors which contribute to SEO. But in general, it's also from a search engine perspective, it's advised to optimize the loading speed of your website. Also, if your website loading takes too long, visitors will leave your website, especially if the loading time is above 2 seconds. So this summarizes this video about how to speed up your WordPress website. I hope it was clear. I hope it was informative. If you have any questions, remarks, comments, questions, feel free to leave a reaction. Thank you for watching, and until next time.